agenda for this evening is public comments. This is public comments for non-agenda items. So this does not apply to the campground or to the school zone photo speed enforcement, just regular public comments. And we have someone signed up that I can't read your name, I'm sorry. So if you signed up for, okay. Because I think you also signed up for the, okay. So just moving on to does anybody want to speak to regular public comments? If not, we will close that public hearing public comment section, sir. Yes, sir. Sheriff Hill, come on up.
Good afternoon. I'm David Hill, Sheriff of Nelson County. Many of you are aware that there was a public forum last night, and there's something that I wanted to catch up on and make a comment in front of all the board members, but there's just three of you all tonight. Last night I spoke on some of the things and progress that we've made and spoke on salaries. Those salaries would not be possible without you all. I did reiterate when I came in office, salaries for deputies started out at $28,000 and some change, and it's progressed. And so I just want to be clear and open to the public that I appreciate you all, and it's a team effort. So I just wanted to point that out here before you all tonight in the crowd. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoops, I need to turn my mic on. And thank you for everything you do. We appreciate you. All right, so next we'll move on to the public hearing. First, before we get started in that, I want to let everyone know that the special use permit number 998 Vacation House has been deferred by the applicant to October. So we will not be having a public hearing on that this evening. So we'll move on to next, which is special use permit 1005 campground.
Okay,
Sir,
you speaking now.
you can't hear me.
I can hear you. I can hear you because you're sitting beside me, but
All right, so this is a request for a special use permit to allow a one-site campground on A1 zoned property. It's at 2601 Falling Rock Drive, which is about 2 acres of land. The owners are Luke and Caitlin Hoge. Luke is here tonight if you have any questions for him. This property contains an existing single-family dwelling that is utilized as a by-right vacation house or short-term rental. The narrative provided by the applicants indicates that they own a camper that they are requesting to utilize as a short-term rental while their family lives in the existing dwelling. This area is residential and agricultural in nature. Zoning in the vicinity is A1, and there are no floodplains located on this property. The property is accessed by an existing entrance on Falling Rock Drive, and VDOT had no comments. The house is also served by existing utilities. The owner has been in contact with the health department, and a licensed soil evaluator will be required to permit cleanup of the camper too. In relation to the comprehensive plan, this property is located in an area designated rural and farming on the future land use map, which would promote agricultural uses and compatible open space uses, but discourage large-scale residential development and commercial development that would conflict with agricultural uses. The rural and farming district would permit small-scale industrial and service uses that complement agriculture. Protection of usable farmland should be encouraged. Clustering of any new development in areas of the site without prime or productive soils will enhance the protection of prime or productive soils for future agricultural uses. So at their meeting on August 23rd, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the special use permit with the following conditions. There shall be no more than one site, and the unit shall be provided by the property owner, and the location of the site shall meet property setbacks. As well as the approval of special use permits should be based on the following factors, which you can see there. The owner had originally on their site plan shown the camper there in front of the house. See that? They have since met with their soil guy, and they're going to be moving it to approximately right there. It's still going to meet setbacks, and they'll have to update the site plan to show where it's going to be, but that's why we added that condition that the camper must meet setbacks, just in case, but it will be approximately right there, and Luke might have more to say about that.
All right, thank you. And does the applicant wish to speak?
Sure.
I'm Luke Bogey. I live at 2601 Falling Rock Drive in Arrington. And I don't know that I have much to add to what Emily said, but yes, our intention is to occasionally rent the camper for, I guess the appeal we think to our land. It's beautiful, agricultural, and then also, you know, the river's close by for fishing, just for occasional renters for those types of things. And the conditions that we put on, I think I'm in agreement with my neighbors on what we want and what we don't want. And I think, you know, what we don't want is a lot of traffic in and out, especially people towing campers. And we don't want an actual campground. We just have a camper that we'd like to rent the, you know, occasional folks passing through. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions or anything like that, but thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, we will open the public hearing on special use permit number 1005, one site campground in A1 at 2601 Falling Rock Drive. First up to speak, we have, is it Troy Nix?
Thank you, members of the board. I am Troy Nix, 1923 Falling Rock Drive, approximately half a mile from the applicant's location. I've spoken with the adjacent landowners comprising approximately 125 acres, as well as nearby neighbors, of which I'm one. And actually, I haven't spoken with anyone that has an objection to this application as it's stated with the limitations. So unless there's a member of the board that has a problem of applying those restrictions or conditions to the permit, I don't really need to speak further. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. And I failed to mention in the beginning, public comments, please state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Next, we have, is it Jenny? Jerry, I'm sorry. You want to speak now? You were next up on this list. Thank you.
I'm Jerry Lloyd, and I live at 9322 Rockfish Valley Highway in Afton, Virginia. And I'm actually, even though the neighbors are all for this, I actually have quite a few questions. First of all, what's the size of the camper? Is it a fifth wheel? Is it permanent? Does it have wrap around the bottom of it? Will it be anchored? Is it assessed with separate electricity? How about the septic system? Is there water that's going to be going to it? Does it have separate water? Is it going to have shower facilities? How many bedrooms are in there? And so without knowing that, it's like, really? So I don't know any of these answers to these questions. They're not stated in here, but the idea of bringing in a camper to rent out a camper on, even though it's a pretty close to a 2-acre piece of property, is you can see the buildings in the background, and even though it's far away, it's really close to the neighbors. So I'm not for this.
Thank you. All right, that's everyone who signed up for this public hearing. Anyone else wish to speak?
My name is Philip Purvis, 509 Megan Lane, Shuffling, Virginia. And, you know, I am all for property rights. I think, you know, I don't like to see restrictions on anybody's property, but I do have some concerns about setting a precedent for campers, you know, to be rented out as an Airbnb on the weekends or just one lot camping. You know, having a camper set up on a one site campground. I mean, I just wonder if this is the kind of precedent that we want to set here in Nelson County. I mean, there are a lot of campers that are sitting in folks' yards throughout Nelson County. Do we want everybody in Nelson County to start renting out their campers for, or have the option to do that? You know, I certainly appreciate, you know, his wanting to, you know, generate a little revenue to help with different things. But I wonder, You know, I mean, if he's gonna have to, I heard him say that they've got to upgrade their septic and everything, that's not an inexpensive proposition. It's gonna take a while to recoup just the, just the investment he's gonna have in, in updating his septic system. And then, of course, hooking up the electric and everything. And, I'm just not sure that I'm in favor of, setting a precedent, having campers set up as Airbnbs or, weekend rental type things and not in a commercial campground environment.
Thank you. All right, anyone else want to speak? If not, we will close this public hearing and open this up to discussion with the board. Anybody have any comments?
I've got a question.
Mike's not on.
Because this is an application for a single campsite and a single vehicle, which is not necessarily pre-existing, but a single vehicle owned by the owner. Is there any type of regulation or assessment that's done when there is a single campground that's that the owner owns, but in terms of condition and codes or whatever that have to be met in order to do that?
Not through our office, as far as the state of the camper itself. What they stated in their narrative is that it's a fifth wheel camper that they want to use to rent out occasionally. From the health department, or from their own narrative, they say that they plan to add a clean out to the existing septic and use the hose bib for water. The camper has its own filtration and hot water heater, and we will put a 50A electric post to plug into. And then comments from the health department, from Travis Davis: if the applicant wishes to rent a camper on their property, the camper will need to be permanently connected to an approved septic system and water supply. This will require that they consult with a licensed OSE or PE to do either. Either permit the sewer connection to an existing septic or design a new septic that is solely dedicated to the camper. If an existing septic system is utilized, the applicant will need to demonstrate that the system is adequately sized to accommodate the current use in addition to the proposed camper.
I don't know if you know the answer to this. Are there any state regulations in terms of a camper, as a vehicle?
Camper?
Yeah, in terms of being a vehicle that's on the road, or an attachment to a vehicle.
I'm really not
Does it have to be licensed?
Well, yeah, so it would have to be licensed. I think it's like a trailer camper situation from DMV. So yeah, it would have to be licensed, but I don't know that zoning would require it to be licensed if it's going to be parked there. You would, because I'm not sure what that license entails. If that license entails the state of the interior of it and the condition of its livability itself, or just its road readiness.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So you just have to have a registration, just like a vehicle, and then it has to go through an exterior mechanical inspection sticker, just like your vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So they wouldn't inspect.
there's nothing in.
the living
No,
space.
no, it's just brakes and lights and all that kind of stuff.
But those things, could those be required as a condition?
Yeah, of course, that it maintain,
Okay.
what would you call that? A DMV?
Well, the problem with that is if it's hooked up permanently, in order to get that inspection sticker, you have to take it to the garage to get it inspected.
Right.
And those are roadworthy requirements, not permanent site. They're checking the brake lights and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's.
So I'm just not sure that roadworthiness applies here, because the special use permit is not for it to be utilized on the road.
Okay.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Yeah, I got some questions.
All right.
I've never seen, a trailer park we've set up, one trailer.
That would just be a mobile home on a parcel, which we do allow. But 2 or more mobile homes on a parcel is considered a mobile home park. But you can do, and that's a special use permit, but you can put a mobile home on a parcel by right in A1 as a home.
I'm not talking about a mobile home, I'm talking about a single wide on an agricultural piece of land. And that's basically the only thing it's there for.
Do you mean, are you talking about a camper or a mobile home?
Well, in this case, you're talking about a camper, aren't we?
Yeah, so yeah, we've approved one-site campgrounds in the past. I don't believe we've approved any where the owner was providing the camper themselves. But we did one, I think last year, we did one a few years ago for, I can't think of his name right now. But yeah, we've done a few
But it's
one-site
taken
campgrounds.
total away from the intent of the ordinance.
But it's really just the only way to approve it, because anything where it's somebody camping in something that's temporary in nature and not a structure that has a certificate of occupancy to be utilized as a dwelling is a campground, even if it's just one site. So as long as they meet that definition for a campground, that's what we need to consider it in the ordinance. So it is just one site, but because of how we have it defined in the ordinance, we have to call it a campground.
Or maybe we need to go back and look at the ordinance.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I am waiting for the comp plan to be done, so we can take a good look.
Part
at
of the
that.
plan.
Yeah.
So it looks like we have a couple of conditions. No more than one site, unit provided by the property owner, so it's not going to be campers coming in and out, and has to meet property setbacks. Sounds to me like we've got approval from the neighbors, and we have had these in the past that we have approved. We have a 6-0 approval from the Planning Commission. What's the pleasure of the board?
I just don't think you're voting on the right thing.
We voted on these before.
Well, maybe it's time to change it.
Well, that's the plan. I mean, that is the plan.
Yeah.
But we have to go through the process to do that.
We do have an extraordinary circumstance tonight where we're missing 2 supervisors, one of whom is in the South District, and the other who is sure to have opinions on this that we could perhaps benefit from hearing.
Okay.
And we don't have to act on this tonight.
Is there any more information that you'd want if you were going to defer it, that you'd want me to collect in the meantime?
Maybe I have one question for the applicant.
Okay.
Tell us about your camper.
Sure. I'm gonna try to remember every question that was just asked. So it is a 42-foot camper, it's a fifth wheel. And to kind of clarify our intention, it is, so Travis sent that email, and I've since spoken to Travis at the health department. He clarified how he camps often, but not in a camper. He camps in tents, so he didn't know how a camper hooks up. So it doesn't need to be permanent. The camper doesn't need to be permanent there. We can still utilize it, which was our intention. It's our camper. I used it last weekend. We took it on a camping trip last weekend. So, we want to be able to do that. And then when we're home, we're expecting a baby soon. We have 2 toddlers. When we're home with our kids, we just want to be able to, rent the camper and to other folks when we're not using it. So it's a 42-foot fifth wheel. It does not currently have skirting I think if conditions permit that, where we need skirting for insulation. Then we would do that. According to our soil evaluator, we can just add a clean out to the current septic. And we would just use a hose bib for water. The camper does have its own filtration. It has 1 shower, it's 1 bedroom. And I'm missing something, but that's, yeah. Yes, it is registered with the DMV as a trailer, and I had every intention to keep that up because, like It's our camper. We use it, so I think we'll be using it more than it'll be rented, but we hope to rent it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Did I miss any? Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? You all want to act on this? You want to delay till we have, we could push it to the next meeting until we have a full board?
Well, if the two of you decide to go forward, I'd be happy to vote on it tonight because I don't see any objection to it.
Right.
But I think we could benefit from having this comment on.
I mean, I think the word campground in this situation, you know, it's just a zoning thing, and I don't have a problem with it. I'm prepared to vote to approve it, but I don't want to move forward if the two of you aren't, or don't want to, or if you want to wait for the others. I don't know. I didn't talk to Jesse or Skip about this, so I don't know if I would imagine if they were opposed to it, but I can't speak to that. I know if I was opposed to something, I wasn't going to be at the meeting, I would have reached out, but I don't have a problem delaying it either. I mean, it's not going to cause a hardship if we delay it. I can't imagine.
No,
Yeah.
we would prefer to proceed.
I understand.
Yeah.
What size is the lot?
About 2 acres.
Huh?
2 acres.
And that's the total size of the lot.
2
You
acres.
don't have any other land around it?
I did forget to address one thing. I just thought all the buildings that you see in those pictures are on my property. They're not neighbors. Those are 2 sheds, a barn, a chicken coop, a house.
And here's the property boundary.
Yeah.
And so those are just the outbuildings, and that's the house. And the camper will be right there.
What's that shown right below?
That's originally where he was planning on putting the camper, but I believe it was on the septic field, so they then.
That's the current site.
And so now it's gonna be more behind the house. Here's the road.
I just think it's an example of getting around some regulations that, I mean, where would we put a house and a mobile home right beside it?
I want to delay this.
Yeah, that's what my preference would be.
All right. Let's go ahead and we'll push this to the September 28th. Can we do it then, or should we move it? In October. We'll push this to the October board meeting.
You want
Loading up
a
on the
motion
28th.
for me to,
Yes, that'd be good.
I'd like to move this, yes, special use permit to October Board of Supervisors meeting.
Okay. Second. We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call vote?
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes. All right, thank you. Next, we have the school zone photo speed enforcement. Who am I turning this over to? Sheriff Hill? I'm sorry.
Good evening. David Hill, Nelson County Sheriff's Office. Today we have with us Greg Hodgson with Blue Line Solutions. Greg did a presentation a few months back, a couple months back, in regards to speed enforcement via camera. A couple years back, legislation was passed which enables localities, Sheriff's Office, PDs to implement speed enforcement through camera systems. They can only be used, to my knowledge, in school zones and also construction work sites. There are some benefits. Studies do show that there's a 90 to 95% roughly reduction in speed violations once these are implemented. Mr. Hodgson can give a breakdown again, kind of just a recap on the positives behind that and some of the numbers that were shown via the statistics with the speed study that was completed a little over a year, let's say probably, what was that? Yeah, about a year ago. And these were conducted in each of the school zones, both elementary, Nelson County Middle and High School complex area as well. So that was November 27th through October 3rd, Monday. Let's see, what was that? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Monday.
So we get a 5-day comprehensive study.
Yeah, 5-day study.
Yes, sir.
Very costly.
My name's Greg Hodgson. I live at 303 South Monte Vista Drive in Glade Springs, Virginia, which is in Washington County in the Great Southwest. I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to come here and speak to you again and answer any questions that the board may have or anyone here that is in favor or possibly against this type of new enforcement that's coming on to the Commonwealth. Our company comes in, like I say, I've got a background in law enforcement, 26 years, and still in a kind of active capacity as an auxiliary officer here in Commonwealth, Virginia. And I've really emphasized my career on public safety, public outreach, communication, and traffic safety. And when this legislation was passed in 2020, it specifically identified 2 locations that only this type of enforcement can be conducted in, and that's school zones and highway work zones. 2 really crucial areas that we need to focus and slow people down, and that's why we come in with the permission of the sheriff, school board members to conduct a 5-day comprehensive study to give them an oversight of what a true week's worth of driving data and behavior is of these zones. And, you know, we can let the public see it tonight. You know, we come in and we did the high school, middle school complex. We had 45,000 vehicles, a little over 45,000 come through that zone between 7:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. and 5,300, which is considered a violation by state code. This is one of the only state codes that puts a limit on what can be considered a violation. So it has to be 10 or above before it can be considered a violation in a school or a work zone. And just to let me does that work? Scroll through. This one here you can see in the shaded area, it's broken down. And you've got the gray, which is the majority of the violations. There's 3,000 some violations at 11 to 14 over. They were a little over 1,000 some on the 15 to 20 category. In the orange category itself, that's considered technically to be a class 1 misdemeanor by speed, not a traffic infraction. That's at 21 and above. That's reckless driving by speed. And there was 885 violations through that school zone during that week. So we come in to give that overview picture to the locality and let you understand to see if there is a need or if there is a problem in those school zones. And then if a locality decides to move forward, then that's when we come in and start what they call public information and education. Because if any program is going to be successful, no matter what it is, whether it's traffic enforcement or any type of enforcement that can affect a community, the success is the educational portion of it, to where we properly educate the citizens of the county and the locality, the school board staff, faculty, and the parents that will be traveling through that area. And I really didn't know at this point in time until we actually got active accounts in the ground to see how we were going to produce that in Virginia. So right now we have 10 active localities that's implemented our school zone safety program. We're working closely with Albemarle County. We're in the very end stages of negotiation through procurement and legal. Hopefully that will move forward very soon. And we've got about 22 agencies that's really currently interested in our program now that we're dealing with from Southwest to Eastern Shore to Nova. But the one county that went first, and Sheriff Foster in Witt County, really stepped up to the plate because he knew that they had a problem. And when we started, and I'll show you what type of reduction, and the only way that we get this type of reduction in school zones is proper education. That is the key to this program, hands down, not the enforcement, it's the education in combination with the enforcement is why the numbers are driven down. Their high school was the highest volume school that they had in the county, and they was having about 2,500 violations per week in that school zone. But once we captured the data, we did the public information and education, 30, 45 days of good solid information and education to the citizens, to the school board portal, reaching out to the parents, civic events, anything of that to bring the attention to the program and let people know why it's coming because of the need of the data. We went through 30 days of warnings. And then after we conducted a post enforcement, we went from 2,500 violations per week in that school zone to 90. So we had a 90, we went from 2,596 to 90 violations per week in that school zone. Because the whole hinge of the program is on proper education. And, you know, when the General Assembly put this together, they identified 2 real important areas to address this, and this is in our school zones. The second school they had 1,000 violations, we took it down to 59. The other one was 297 violations a week, we took it down to 16. So we had a 96%. And Bridgewater has 1 school, and Chief Reed has just been phenomenal to work with there. They have 1 school on a 4-lane. And I apologize, I don't know if I have yet, here it is. Their numbers, I don't know if I'll put this in the packet. Let's see. Bridgewater went, they had a 91% reduction post 60-day enforcement. So, and they promote walk to school days. And they're working with VDOT to get a crosswalk put on one of the 4 lanes, and it was a very needed program. And every chief and sheriff that we've worked with that's in the process of implementation start at least, like I say, 30 to 45 days prior to anything happening, doing proper education. And if we have anyone in the public who would like to speak with us one-on-one, we're here to conduct one-on-one meetings, any type of civic meeting to make sure that people have the proper information before we move forward and have a very good understanding on how the program is implemented and followed through the whole way. So, if you have anything else that we really need to touch on or that you'd like to talk about?
So, you know, sometimes we get complaints. This is hands down our biggest complaint area. As you all know from budget meetings, you can be right in the moment about how many deputies we have out working at any given point in time. Right now, we probably have 3 deputies out working tonight. Tomorrow morning, 2 to 3. We have 3 school zones. Having deputies present in those school zones is not always possible. And so it fluctuates. If calls come in there, that's our primary duty, to respond to those calls. So having this in place as a force multiplier would be a tremendous help to our community. It would be a safety measure to help our students and teachers, bus drivers, and everyone is a reassurance. And that's the ultimate goal, is to implement something like that as a safeguard.
Is there any incentive from the state if you do this to possibly give you some personnel?
So in regards to personnel, any revenue that's generated from this, it would go back to the general fund, and you all would get to decide and how that's used. Now, ultimately, it would be great to put it back into public safety, say law enforcement. That would be awesome. But in regards to the reduction rates, if the violators are reduced from 90 to 95%, somewhere in that range, I'm not sure what the revenue projections would be on that.
Just one other thing I want to touch on, just to clarify, because this is one of the biggest questions that we get asked is, what's the penalty for a violation? It's intended to be a civil penalty only. It's not intended to even rise to the burden of a traffic infraction. So there's no points assessed to violations that's captured in any of these areas. There's no reporting to the violator's insurance. You do not have to go to court, and you do not have to be assessed for processing fee. It goes back to the locality, as the sheriff explained, and it's reallocated and you put back into public safety or school safety. It's what its intent is to be there, but that's completely up to the board on how that's reallocated throughout the county. And just to have that capability where it's not an extended punitive like punishment for a violation where it does not hit your driving record and it does not follow you through your insurance and it's not reported. And a lot of people don't realize that until they actually dive into the code and they see that. So it's a really good way to correct driving behavior without affecting your driving record and having to be hit by the insurance increases and things of that nature. So I just wanted to clarify that, okay, because that's one of the questions that we get asked.
So what happens in a multiple thing when, say, the sheriff's been caught 5 times? Does he just, get to brush off and,
I guess he'll pay his penalty just like everyone else. I mean, there's no increase in the amount of fine for increased violations.
but do they watch it enough? I mean, like, if you catch him 2 or 3 times, it needs to go.
Well, that has to be amended in the code. The General Assembly has to set that forth before that can happen. Like second or subsequent or more offenses, the more offenses, maybe your fine would go up. But right now, by the way the state statute is written, it's $100 civil penalty only. Yeah, so we cannot increase it.
That doesn't make sense.
And that very well could be addressed in future General Assemblies down the road, is to have that language amended or corrected.
Any other questions before we start the public hearing?
I've got a question for the sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
So when you have a deputy on site in one of the school zones, yes, when you have one available, what is the standard protocol that they do when they're there? I mean, do they have their lights going?
No, so they'll sit there and most of it's preventative patrol. That way they're seen in the school zones. Usually the first couple weeks or so, a lot of times they're deputies, and it's their discretion if they sit there with their lights on because school's back in session. Their school's here the week prior to school starting. They turn the flashing lights on during those times to let people get used to it, or locals get used to it. Some of their deputies, when school's back in session the first week, they may turn their blue lights on. There may be times when their radar equipment may not be working properly. So they're going to be limited on how they use their radar, or they won't be able to use it at all. We've been fortunate to be able to replace a lot of radars over the years, but they do have front and rear antennas. But they can catch both oncoming and going away traffic, but there will be limitations on what side of the roadway they can work because of that. If they're using LiDAR, now that opens it up to where, and that's a handheld unit, they can work different lanes. But in regards to the lights being on or not, most of the time they will not have their lights on, but they're set in a very obvious part of the roadway where people can see as a deterrent. And this won't necessarily keep our folks from being seen there. I hope that they will spend time in the school zones when they're available. If this is implemented, to be seen as an additional deterrent. But it fluctuates where the guys and gals set up. So.
Yeah. I understand that your focus is more on deterrent than prosecuting.
Yes, sir.
But is there any data that you have on how many tickets have been, are written for people abusing the school zones?
I could run that information. It take me a little time to get that, but I can.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. And I'll say, when I worked the road here years ago, and I worked the school zones every day, that was my thing. I worked daylight shift. And most of the violators that come through are not our citizens. They're not our citizens. But having additional signage where it displays it well in advance, this area is monitored by camera, speed enforcement via camera, I think that's going to help quite a bit. But most of the violators that I personally encountered were always people coming through, traveling through.
One other thing I just wanted to throw in, and I forgot to mention it. That program, and I hope everyone is familiar with the radar feedback signs. So when you're going into a residential neighborhood, it's on a speed limit post and it'll flash your speed. We put these in at free of charge, no charge to the locality, to the sheriff, to the school system, because we want everyone traveling into that school system to get that last visual indication at their speed before they get into that enforcement area. So you're going to see the school paintings on the road, you're going to see the static sign with the parent and child crossing the road, then you're going to see the flashing lights, and then you're going to see the radar feedback sign. So we, working with VDOT in New Kent County and Bridgewater, we've actually implemented our radar feedback signs on the flashing school beacons. So when you see the 25, you're actually seeing your speed flash in your face right before you get into that enforcement area. So you can actually see, if you ever visit or if you ever go to a school zone enforced area, you will see a tremendous amount of people slowing down before they get even close to the enforcement area. And that's what everything is intended to do, to slow the traffic down going through that one dedicated area. And then once they clear the school zone, then they can go back to the normal close to speed limit. But we want to give that one additional cue for people to slow down and see the speed before they get to that area.
Very good. Thank you. Ready to open this up? All right, we will now open the public hearing. And first we have Robert.
My name is Robert Gubish, 334 Rainbow Ridge Road in Fauquier. This was presented a couple of months ago at a board meeting, and I'm repeating myself, but I think one obvious question that hasn't been asked, and I ask it now, is with all the data that's been presented, how many children have been run over by the speeders, and how many school buses have been crashed into by someone speeding? And since I live here, I've heard of none, so I'm going to guess that no children have been smashed, no school buses have been smashed, no property damage has happened due to these speeders, and no one's been injured. So when it comes to safety, which is used all the time, this is for the safety. I believe what has been shown already is that these people that are speeding through the school zones are speeding through the school zones safely. They haven't harmed anybody, they haven't caused any damage. So I think the safety issue has already been solved. The reality speaks for itself. The school zones are probably this wide, and the school is right here. And I would guess that most everybody is speeding into the school zone, and when they get to the school, they slow down, but they actually notice there are no children walking to school anymore. I don't know of any children who walk to school. So there's not even a chance of running into a child. And everybody who's paying any attention can see these big yellow school buses really easy. So from my view and from everybody I spoke with in the past month and a half, we don't see an issue. I spend my life driving these roads in Nelson County because I get paid to do it. And I would say 65% of everyone is speeding every day, all day, only for one reason, not because they're crazy, criminal, dangerous people, it's because they know they can safely do so. I speed every day, not because I'm a bad person, not because I don't cause any crashes. My record is pure. But what we all seem to know is we can speed without harming anyone or causing any damage. So I can't help but look at this as legalized grand larceny. What hasn't been mentioned tonight is the amount of money to be made. When this was first presented, one board member wrote down a figure and said, and I'm believing it was at least, this is $250,000 a week. So there's a lot of money to be made here. And when you take $100 out of a pocket of a working citizen, that hurts. That doesn't just tickle, that hurts.
Finish your thoughts, please. Thank you. Your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Paul Davis.
Davis, 2514 Rockfish Valley Highway in Ellis Ford. This program, listening to it, being retired law enforcement myself, I'm always pro-police. And the only things that I ask some questions about, anything like this that helps law enforcement is beneficial. On the plus side of it, what does anybody, as a board member, a sheriff, any administrator in the county, it's a good idea. The only problem that I would see, where I was in law enforcement, was a very liberal city, Charlottesville. And some of the things that I like to know, that I don't know about, is the cost to the county. One of the big things in the Charlottesville area, you'll see even in Albemarle County, and this would be something that the sheriff and the board probably would, if it was passed, would be presented with. What does the company do with the data? Is it dumped? Because that's a big thing when you have these license plate readers and anything where you're gathering data, especially from people's cars. And that's how the tickets are done. And then on the flip side, I also saw whenever we had camera enforcement, just a little bit more work for the law enforcement aspect. Immediately, somebody's car reported stolen when they realized they went to a speed zone and they got their ticketed. Their car being ticketed. You see this with in these expressways and these toll roads. So those are only some of the things I see that could be a problem with it. It could be an increase with what do you do with the data? Because that's a big thing with people today. Government keeping the data, cost to the county, and the tickets for themselves may cover the cost. But for the sheriff, you may see a few increased stolen vehicles because people are quick to know, oh crap, I'm not getting a ticket. I'm gonna go real quick and report my car stolen. I saw this all the time, especially with accidents. The car is immediately reported stolen, so they feel they can get out of it. That's only my concern. But on the plus side, for all of us, I mean, where do you get any negative comments from somebody putting something like this in their school zone? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have David Hill.
I was there earlier, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, very good. Greg? Okay, and Edith Napier.
Good afternoon. I'm Edith Napier, 43 Napier Loop, Arlington, Virginia. I was here in July when I heard the presentation, and I was taken back by several of the things that were stated. So I want to go on the record of saying that the citizens of Nelson value the children of Nelson, the visitors to Nelson, and the Nelson citizens. I say to this board, you do not have enough information to make an informed decision. The individual that presented the information in July was a good salesperson. He even touched upon our emotional buttons of telling us to think about the children and do best for them. I say to him, and I say to everybody, we always think about our children, and we always try to do what is best for them. But we need to stop, slow down, and look at the full implications of this. This is a money-making transaction. And if I heard correctly in July, the company will get 75% and the county is not, or 70.
25, 75.
We get county, 25 to 75. I thought it was the other way with them. But if you just look at the pure money that's going to go out, that is 25 and 75 for the county. Okay. But anyhow, we should not be in a rush to do this. We should know the questions about the dependability of the equipment. How often is it serviced? The contract period. Because if it's going to tie us up for a long time in a contract and we go in 1 year and we don't like it, but most people don't give you a 1-year contract. They want longer. I ask you, why can't Nelson on its own initiate and set up machines that will let people know what they're traveling at? In my experience, whenever anyone run up on one of those machines that's flashing at you what you're driving, you immediately slow down. And then if you see the sign, it says school zone 35, I think that would be education. And he said that the education piece is the main piece, and I agree. But there's nothing stopping us from doing the education piece here in the county versus paying someone to do it outside the county. It seems to be just a matter of equipment. And the other thing, you might want to go talk to counties that have this great program. Talk to the citizens, talk to the supervisors before making a decision to spend our money on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak?
My name is Jerry Lloyd. I live at 9322 Rockfish Valley Highway in Afton. And personally, I find this program ludicrous. As Mr. Davis said, and the other individual just recently, this truly is a money-making deal. Just looking at the numbers, I did not have until just a second ago what the percentage was, 25% for the company and 75% for the Nelson County. Looking at the blue chip there, just looking at the blue one, that's $174,800 if it's $100 per ticket. Well, 25% of that is $43,700. That would be going to the company. The major company holder is in Tennessee, not Nelson County. The other thing is that it's not so much the school zones that need monitoring, but 151 really needs attention to speeders, not just the school system. They talked about having a connection with Nova. I taught in Nova for over 11 years, and they have many, many more schools than we do. They also have many, many, many more people who live in the county, and it just makes it almost impossible for the sheriff's department, the local police departments to be able to monitor some of this. So for them, it is conducive for what they do. Sheriff Hill and his department, could be able to, should be able to handle this sort of an issue. Having this program actually reduces his responsibility. He doesn't have to worry so much about it because it's quote unquote, automatic. They're not always correct. As I said, I lived in Loudoun County. I knew some of the people who were dealing with that. How often are they calibrated? What happens, as Mr. Davis said, to our collected data? Does the company keep it? Does Nelson County get it? It's like, again, ludicrous. And so the amount of money that is going to go to this company instead could come to Nelson County. That's a lot of money. If this data was collected, I'm looking at it very quickly, but $43,700 for this particular study? Nelson County could do a lot for that. None of our schools' entrances are on a main highway. They're not on 29. They're not on 151. None of them. And yet you're going to be going down there. They are off of 151. They are off of 29, but they are not directly on those roads. So I am very much against this program. Very much. It's a moneymaker for the company that wants it.
Thank you. Time's up.
I'm Susan McSwain. I live at 3254 Dutch Creek Lane in Shipman. And in my opinion, this program is a no-brainer to approve. I read the Blue Line Solutions report before I came here, part of which is up there. And some of the questions people had are actually answered in that report. And all of the communities that are using this service are happy with the service. And they're happy with the fact that there's fewer speeders on their roads. And they're also happy with the income. Yes, income is part of it. I would not expect this company to provide this service for free, nor would I expect any company to provide services for free. They're in the business of making money, but we get 75% of the money. We're getting ready to spend a huge amount of money on the schools. I think we can afford to put this service in place on the roads in front of the schools. And it is a good thing for the bus drivers to be able to come and go off that road. As has been pointed out, we don't have a lot of deputies in the county. There's a lot of roads. I prefer for those deputies to be out driving the roads during school times, making their presence known to the residents, instead of sitting on the side of US 29 watching cars go by. I just think that it's a better use of their time, and it certainly makes me as a citizen feel better. And I think I've said everything I have to say, except that I urge you to approve this service. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak?
My name is Dave McGann, McGann's Wilderness. What I heard about this program that they got right now, because I live on 151, and I'm on the traffic of the school zone. My wife drives a school bus and everything. And as far as this program that I can see, people don't pay attention to the lights no more. They're still running through them school zones. The deputy sheriff is trying to do all they can do at down 151 in the morning time to stop them slowing down. And right now, as they said, we ain't got no accident yet. Let's don't wait till we have a bad accident to do something about it. Let's do something about it before it happens. This program seems like to me it's going to pay for its own self. In the revenue, we're not looking at making money on revenue. We're paying for the equipment and paying for the updating of these speeder things. If it needs to be updated, they got the money left to do it. I don't know, they said that the signs ain't gonna cost Nelson County nothing. In the end, all of the stuff ain't gonna cost us nothing. So I don't see, if they making $43,000 of the revenue coming off of it, Nelson County is putting in $126,000. That is going into Nelson County, in the sheriff department, in the budget that they can put for our deputies, instead of them going out there and have to spend the low money that we'll put into the county. Because 90% of the people that speeding through the zone is out of state, coming through here on 151. So the Nelson County people ain't gonna pay the revenue because they know it's a damn school zone. These other people's gonna pay it. So I'll approve, and if anybody needs any signatures, I'll probably go get 1,500 tomorrow to sign on this program. So I'm telling y'all tonight, do a little bit more study on if a man gets twice getting a speed ticket in the same area, the pocketbook's going to hurt him. It's going to slow him down. I don't know about keep on having them over and over and over. It's anything they can do about it, or he going to pay the fine. They got to look into how they're going to do it if he don't pay the fine. That's the only thing I can see might be a problem. Is collecting money if he don't pay the bill. But I approve. And I guarantee I get 1,500 votes tomorrow, signature on approving this, where I live in Athens, Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak to this? If not, we will close the public hearing and we will open this up to comment from the board. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll undo that.
I'm Brenda Harris, 831 Pine Trail, Lexington. And how much does it cost?
Zero cost to the locality. And we provided the board, when we come up the last time, we read a letter from the CEO, absolutely no cost to the program for photo study.
So there's no expense to the county?
Can we use her 3 minutes like that? Can we use her 3 minutes like that?
Infrastructure costs.
I got to get.
We recoup our infrastructure costs, technology.
All right. Let's get this back.
I'm sorry.
Maintenance.
We're going to address some more questions of them but we're welcome your comments if you have.
I was wondering about maintenance.
We're going to ask some questions here in just a minute. So Anybody else want to speak in public comment? All right. Public hearing is now closed. Now, we have some questions. You want to go? You want me to go? All right, so a couple of things. So let's clear up some questions that came up, some very good questions. So how dependable is the equipment? That was one of the first things I wrote down, was dependability.
Very, very good questions. In law enforcement, in the state of Virginia, any type of speed measurement device has to be approved by the Department of Purchase and Supply in Richmond. And it comes from the conforming product list, which is approved by NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So all of our radars and lidars, it's used for any photo speed by the Virginia State Police, Nelson County Sheriff's Office, City of Charlottesville, Smith County, any law enforcement jurisdiction has to come from the conforming product list. If it's in a hands-on traditional enforcement method, which is an officer in the car that's initiated event, by code of Virginia, it has to be calibrated and on file with the district court, circuit court, or juvenile court every 6 months. For unmanned enforcement, it has to be calibrated at least once per year. Any offsite or any unmanned device runs internal circuit checks every 35 minutes. If there's any error, internal error, any calibration issue, the system shuts down and sends a message it's just like our breathalyzer machine that we use for DUI. It's continuously running internal circuit checks and everything of that nature. So if there's any issues, any conflicts with inside the instrument itself, it shuts down and notifies us. Then we send a team out to completely repair it and get it back up to standard. We have one company that comes around and actually takes the devices down yearly and certifies them, and they're a vendor for all the major conforming product list speed measurement. It's on the list for the Department of Purchase and Supply.
What about the contract? How long, if the county were to enter into this, how long are they on the hook?
It was presented to Nelson County Sheriff, 2-year contract.
2 years.
Yes, sir, minimum 2 years. Some of our localities that we go into, and every locality is different across the Commonwealth. We go into some counties and towns that have school zones marked, static signs in place, but no flashing lights. So technically, you cannot conduct photo speed in the Commonwealth of Virginia unless there's flashing lights present. So when we come into the locality, we have to permit through VDOT. Every locality that we've been in so far, all of the flashing placards have been out of code or out of compliance with VDOT regulation. So we come in and upgrade the placards for the school system at absolutely no cost. We fix everything and make sure it meets or exceeds the standards set forth by VDOT, and everything is up to par before any type of enforcement is taking place. So we have upgraded, we can put new flashing lights in, whether they're solar powered or AC powered. We come in and make sure everything is up to standard before any enforcement takes place.
I think we've already hit on this. The cost of the county?
None, zero.
So no infrastructure, no.
It takes us 2 years minimum to make our infrastructure costs that we invest to get the system up and running. Now, fixed location, there's going to be more because there's concrete in the ground, there's permitting, there's poles. We have to pull AC power in some places. We have to install solar panels to operate the equipment. There's another method that you can use is what they call a mobile application, which is a trailer. And then you have a handheld application, which is a hands-on LiDAR device used by a deputy sheriff or state police or whoever that conducts photo speed enforcement from their vehicle without having to chase a car through a school zone to catch a speeder, which makes it twice as dangerous. So there's 3 different applications that you can use, and based upon whatever application you need is what we can provide to the locality.
What happens to the data that's collected?
Data, it's specifically, and I would encourage somebody, I can't recall it right now to mind, but there is language in the code of Virginia that data has to be purged after 60 days. If no violation occurs, it's captured. The only data that's captured is when the lights are active and the cameras are going. And at the end of each year, by the 15th day of January, we have to report to the Virginia State Police our information, our data, so they can compel the record, and then by the 15th of February, they compile a record and present it to the General Assembly so they can track the success of the program across the Commonwealth. So the code is very, very specific, and it says any information captured, any violation, can only be used for the offense it's captured for. So if you have a string of B&Es or larcenies, and say the sheriff wants to go back and say, can y'all send me that data of all the vehicles that went through that school zone, we are not allowed to provide that by state statute. The information captured for the violation can only be used for a violation of 462873, which is a school zone, the 462878.1 for workplace. And that's the only thing that the data can be used for. So when the General Assembly passed legislation, they looked at that caveat to protect people's information. And everything that we capture is stored at the inlet's facility on a server in Arizona. And that's where we do our inlet query, and that's where our information comes from. It's law enforcement.
So a couple of questions for Sheriff Hill. Why don't you just do this yourself?
Why don't we just do it ourselves?
Yeah.
I have no knowledge in regards to what's out there and setting up such cameras, systems, and of course, manpower to do that. As Ms. Napier stated, there are signs that are out there. I can't say that I don't agree with you in regards and, hey, what's out there? But there are companies that do this. They're experts in it. And there are several other ones out there. But these folks, they're great. They have a great reputation. Excuse me, I'm cold. I tell you, it's freezing in here, so my teeth are chattering. But anyhow, they have a great reputation. And so that's the thing is I've gotten to know Greg through speaking with him on many different occasions. And I've had questions. I've had the same questions, in regards to contract, the costs, any upfront costs. And he's been very devoted. He's retired law enforcement, works auxiliary down in Southwest Virginia. But in regards to me doing this, that's, I have thought about that. As Ms. Napier stated, it's like, okay, well, what about signs? But in regards to tracking all that, it takes time and it takes expertise and systems to check up on. So.
And then next question for you is, why don't you set this up on 151?
Where at?
On Alcohol Alley, as so many people like to call it.
So you can only set these up, as he stated, in school zones and construction zones. Those are only two places per legislation.
I'm asking a lot of questions I know the answers to.
Okay.
I'm just
Okay.
covering questions that were brought up tonight.
Phenomenal.
Yes.
Okay.
So, any other comments, questions from the board?
I got another question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. This is the third time I've heard your presentation, by the way, so I'm getting it down. If we were to go forth with this project, at the end of 2 years, what would you present to us before looking at us to re-up a contract?
We would just look at you to track this. We continuously provide you post-data reports to track the success of the program. At the end of the contract, that is completely up to the sheriff of the locality how they want to proceed on it. If they want to extend it, that's theirs. If they don't, that's fine. That's completely up to the locality. So that's where we're standing on that part of it.
So what data would we have, let's say we don't think, let's say it goes into place. We as a board don't think about it for 2 years. And then it's time for us to decide if we're going to re-up it. What information would you have for us?
Well, I would just, as the post-data reports come available, we would provide that to the sheriff and request him share it with the board members, and share it with the school board members and the school board superintendent to let them see how the program continuously keeps the violations down. At the end of that contract, if the locality looks at us and says, we think we've got a handle on it and we don't want to proceed any further, no harm, no foul, we're out of contract and that's it. So that goes back just completely to, the locality's wishes when it gets to that point. So, And one other thing, I wanted to address, and I tell people all the time, don't focus on the amount of citations or the number on the speed studies. That's baseline data to show you true unskewed driving behavior through these zones. Our programs across the whole country that we've got a footprint in, we achieve a 90 to a 94% reduction. So when you see astronomical numbers, I want to ask you, look at it and say, what's it look like when you reduce it by 90%? Don't do your revenue calculations on baseline data, because that's unskewed driving behavior with no enforcement, no public information, no education, no let's open forum, be transparent, talk about it. Because if we wanted to generate revenue, we would come in and find a locality with high numbers and never talk to anyone. But our owner, everyone who works in us is former law enforcement officers. We've responded to the crashes, we've seen fatalities, and I can't remember, someone made a comment about, we've never had a school bus accident. Well, until you roll up on a school bus accident full of kids and you've seen a bus roll over. I always want to take the proactive approach and put anything in place that I could to prevent something from happening in the future and not waiting to be reactive. And that's what we look at in the law enforcement arena, is try to be as proactive as we can to try to stop bad things from happening before they do. And here's the thing, the reduction speaks for itself across our state, and I think it will continue to do that. We want 100% compliance, but we know that we will never get it. That's why we put all the steps in place to properly educate people before they get into this. If you go through one of our zones that's properly set up and you get a violation, then you was not paying attention to where you were going and what you were doing and what zone you were in. And that goes back to just traditional enforcement from the local law enforcement level to this. And this is new to the Commonwealth. And it was put in place to protect these two areas, because everyone either has a child, nephew, niece, granddaughter, grandson in school, and somewhere in your family circle, your friend circle, someone knows someone who's working in a work zone. And every year we hear of VDOT workers get struck and killed in a work zone. And Virginia State Police is looking at implementing this program throughout the whole Commonwealth and all of the major work zones now. So it's just an additional tool to help make the roadway safer.
So if we would decide to go forward with this, how long is the lag time between the time we say yes and the time it actually gets put in? Because it seems like the most ideal time is at the beginning of the school year, which we
Yes.
just passed. And if I'm wondering, would this be in place in time for next school?
I would say it would probably launch late spring of next school year, if not the following year after. You're looking at about a 6-month window, because by the time we enter into an agreement with the locality and we start submitting the site plans to VDOT, it usually takes at least 30 to 60 days for VDOT to approve the site plans and give us the authority to go in and upgrade signage, put radar feedback signs up, upgrade the school beacons and everything of that nature. And then once we get the final permits back, then we put it out to our contractor, and they come out to the site, have to go through the mixed utility, before you dig. And it takes a while to get that in place, but it's a process that once permitting starts, we're already preparing for the construction.
Right, so how many months?
You're probably looking, if everything goes good, at least a minimum of 6 months. And we always want to launch the program at the right time. So we would start probably after, it's probably actually the next school year before it actually starts.
Right, so we actually could wait a few months to
Yeah,
make a
and here's
decision
the thing.
and still have enough time to have it implemented in time.
That decision solely is based upon the law enforcement official, who would be the sheriff and the school superintendent. And you asked a very good question while ago. I've had so many questions trying to think about it. Is, why don't you go ahead and do it, Sheriff? Well, here's the whole thing. We want a collaborative approach. We want the agreement between the governing body, the school system, and law enforcement and the community. This don't need to be a one-horse show. This needs to be everyone has buy-in. Everyone understands it. We understand the mission of the program, and we want to move together as a whole. Now, the sheriff is here asking for your support, but the General Assembly gave him authority in 2020 under state code to go ahead and conduct this type of enforcement. Nelson County has a local code here in the county where they adopted the entire 46.2 motor vehicle code of Virginia. So when an officer goes out here on 29 and writes a summons, for speeding, he puts the county code here. And once that process goes through the district court system and it's reallocated back to the local fund, that's how it works. So the sheriff has the authority now to just do it by state code. But we don't, we like to have everyone's buy-in and everyone's participation because it needs to be focused as Nelson County is doing this to protect their school zones. Not just sheriff, not just the school superintendent, because you can't do this. Sheriff can do it anytime, but we want everybody's buy-in and participation. Open and transparency and proper education is the key to the whole success of this program. He can go out here and 29 run 1,000 tickets a year for speeding. And you're only educating the people that you stop. But when you put the education in front of it and you have the community buy-in, that's when you have the best results, like the 97% reduction.
Very good. Thank you.
Mark?
Yes, ma'am.
I just have one thing to add that maybe wasn't discussed, and Mr. Hodgson can speak to this as well. There's no upfront cost to the county. However, if we enter into a 2-year agreement and we do terminate early for whatever reason, then we would be responsible for repaying the capital installation costs of the equipment.
And that's prorated the more you go into it, that cost comes down. And that protects us as a company from coming in and putting the infrastructure, the upgrading the school signs, everything permitting. And you say, oh, we've had it 6 weeks, we don't want to come in. And then we're out completely because it takes us at least minimum 24 months to make our infrastructure cost back that we put into it to get the program up and going at no cost to the county. What's it?
Just one more question. Is the contract with the locality or with the
It's between the sheriff and the locality. Usually, most of our contracts have either a town manager, county administrator to go into it, but, we've never had the point where, board chair made the comment, sheriff, why don't you do it? So we always want a collaborative approach, but the sheriff could execute a contract because he's in a constitutional position and it's his agency, but we want the buy-in and participation of the county as well. That's.
So for our purposes, it would be with the county?
Yes. But with the sheriff being the primary executor of the contract.
Comments?
Well, most things, this isn't real easy or cut and dry, but when Mr. Parr made the comment about Alcohol Alley, the reality is that this offers the only tool that I'm aware of at our disposal in the short term to create a safer corridor along 151. And it is at a place that is important, not just for the school as intended, but also for that stretch of 151 where the sight lines are poor, and it would really benefit my constituents, and I believe Mr. Harvey's as well, to be able to put something in place that slows down the flow of traffic to some extent all the time, even though it's only operating during school hours, before and after school. Because VDOT does not give us tools to be able to regulate the speed on that corridor, this is something that can do that in a limited amount of time, at low cost, and to a great benefit, I think, to our community. So I would certainly be in favor of this, but just to say as I'm finishing up my comments, again, I'm really sensitive to the team of the supervisors here, and I don't think it would be a good idea for us to move forward on a vote on this tonight without their input and their votes, because this is something that affects everybody.
I understand.
So I would put that out.
Any comments? I'll start by saying that I agree. Tonight's not the night to vote on this. Couple of reasons, but primarily we're short on the board. And I think this is too big of a decision for the community for us to make, only three of us here. But I also want to go out and have more conversations with the community. I think Mr. McGann summed it up pretty good, and I'm along those same lines. Pet peeve of mine is people that speed through a school zone. And when I'm going my 34 miles an hour through the school zone and somebody zooms by me, I feel like I want to push them off the side of the road. But when it comes to the safety of our kids, I think we need to do everything that we can. And if this helps, then I support it. I also understand that there are other concerns. I think we would need to look at the contract and make sure, that everything measures up there. But right now, I'm in a position where someone's going to have to talk me out of supporting it where I am now. I'm not ready to vote on it tonight, but I do think that that it's a positive, and I'm absolutely open to conversations with constituents. So I think we need to put this off. We have more, have a full board to discuss. And then if we have any questions, we have your contact information. We can go to Sheriff Hill. But that's where I am on it. So any input? Anyone else?
Sir, one thing I'd like to just say.
If you could come up to the microphone.
The 151 corridor that you were discussing, it's been brought back before the General Assembly in the past couple of years to expand the footprint outside of the school zones. And it got in committee. So there is a continuing effort at the General Assembly to broaden the footprint of photo speed, but it would be in 35 or higher mile zone areas with sufficient crash data to support this type of enforcement activity. And thinking about, you said you have a lot of speeds in that area, think about in the future looking maybe a traffic calming device to start out with. A radar feedback sign in an area where you have a very limited road lines and visibility to let people actually visually see their speed flashing in the face and maybe slow down. And we work with different localities across the state, and we also provide just radar feedback signs to put in areas of high crash line for speeding violations. So there's a different multitude of paths, I guess, that we can take to get to that to help you in areas right now that we cannot conduct photo speed because statute.
I got a question there that
Yes, sir.
If you just got your machines out there and stuff, getting the information, and we see a real bad trip of what they got there, can we,
About what, sir? I'm sorry.
about the speeding,
Yes.
if it shows up that, this is an area in the county that we really need to look at, is that something that the sheriff can take and?
Now, the sheriff can reach out to us anytime, and we'll help him whenever we can, but, the devices that we use to capture this data it's just a very small Ka band radar unit that's very, very accurate, that captures the data that can be used, and we can gather data from you on any county road that you would like to help, and we would like to help provide that data for you. And you could look at it in the future, and if it's an area where you feel as a board there needs to be a reduction in speed, you can make a request to your local VDOT office and request an official speed study. Now, we have submitted our speed studies like this to an engineer in Tyson, Virginia, to do an 85 percentile study on that. And we've presented their seal on that to VDOT, and they've accepted it as an actual study. So, we can work with you and provide data. You can have any of our speed data and present it to VDOT. If the sheriff requests us to help you in an area like that, we're going to be happy to help you look into that. So, who knows in the future where this is going? I think it will grow in the future, but I think we need several years of data to track to see the success of the two areas it's intended to help before they broaden it and allow it to go out into other parts of the community. And I still think that we need to look at our crash data and our vehicle travel flow and volume through there before we implement this in certain areas. it's intended to be in these two situations right now. Okay.
Very good. Any other questions, comments? We don't have to, if we're going to push this to another meeting, we don't have to take any action tonight, do we?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to ask
Just
me more
instruct staff
questions?
with the-
You got some raised hand, just, you need to wait till next time.
I don't have any other questions. I asked all the questions that I wrote down.
I'm talking about, there's a citizen right there.
Well, public hearing's over.
Okay.
All right. Any other business that we need to present this evening?
No, sir.
Anything? Anyone have anything else?
No, I just wanted to make note that, since we're deferring this to the next meeting, we won't be having another public hearing, but there will be an opportunity for public comments.
Yeah.
Before we take any action. So if you feel you can get a chance to say something.
And I encourage everyone to reach out to your supervisor and have those questions and those conversations and share your input, because this is a big decision, and so we want your feedback. So, yes,
May I just clarify?
absolutely.
Are you deferring this kind of indefinitely or until the next meeting or just until?
We're going to discuss when we will
Okay,
revisit.
all right.
Yeah.
Make that clear so
Yeah.
everyone's aware.
Yes. It'll be posted on an agenda as an agenda item, but I don't want to commit to a date
Okay, thank you.
necessarily. Yep. All right, hearing no other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Until, excuse me, we're continuing, right?
Yes.
I will entertain a motion to continue this meeting until September 28th, 2023 at 6:30 PM for a joint work session with the Planning Commission.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Roll call vote?
Mr. Harvey?
yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
Yes. We are adjourned. Thank you all.